I think I was going to go to the bathroom, but now I'm just going to sit here.
We're just going to deal with it?
Yeah, we're just going to deal with it. Try not to urinate live on air. All right, hello and welcome to this week's episode of Pit Against, a live Flesh and Blood call-in show. I'm joined by my cousin co-host Kevin SirSmurphington. Kevin, what's up?
Hello.
Hello. Pit Against is a live call-in show. If you'd like to be on air talking to us about your take, join the Pit Against Discord by clicking the link that's in the description and that Kevin has just now put in chat. Then join the waiting room channel, put your hot take in the topics channel, and we'll pull you on for a mic check and then put you on air. I'm running a little late. What do you want to talk about first? Is there anything in particular you wanted to talk about first? Oh, actually, there was one thing I wanted to talk about first. Something that happened today, actually.
Okay.
Some news dropped. There's a new set announced called Mist of something. I don't remember.
The Mist Veil?
The vapor in the mist or something. And the vapor in the air.
Yeah.
And it looks really cool. They've already hinted at the fact.
Piece of art.
Yeah. They've already hinted at the fact that there's definitely going to be exactly 3 classes, and that the classes are going to be Ninja, Wizard, and Merchant. Stop. And everyone knows it's going to be that because it says specifically. Let me see if I can find it here somewhere. It's everyone's posting about it on Twitter right now. I can't immediately find it, but it was something about, or maybe I should just actually go to the page instead of, go to the article.
Quote James White, "Can't wait to share MST with you all. This set is peak TCG design."
That's super cool. So it says,
"We'll see." That's a big claim.
Like the tiger stalking its prey, they have waited. That's Ninja, obviously. Like the waning faces of the moon, they have waited. That's Wizard, obviously. Like the snake hiding in the murky water, they have waited. You know what that is? That's Merchant. And I can tell you why it's Merchant. Because in Outsiders...
They're snakes? They're cheating you?
Yeah. So in Outsiders, there's specifically a card that conditionally is a 1-for-5 that blocks 2. What's that card called? It's like Springtrap Snake or something.
Springload. Pocket Snake.
It's a generic card. Merchant. We're getting our first Merchant in a draftable set, and I'm so glad that they have officially announced that. They have not officially announced that. That's all the speculating that I'm going to do English about the set. Anything you wanted to add to it?
We only have one piece of art, and people think it's Amira, the illusionist character from not Passing Mirage, but Flicker Trick, and a couple other illusionist cards.
Mirror something?
I think Amira.
No, the card where it's like a person and there's a bunch of mirrors around them.
Fractal Replication?
Is that her?
I think so. That might be another one.
Fractal Mining. Yes, that looks like her. Spears of Sorality?
Yeah, Spears as well.
I don't know. Seems cool, I guess. Kind of cool. Illusionist, maybe. I don't know. We'll see. It'll be like every set where we're not where we think we got it, and then like it comes right up to the spoilers, and we're like, no, we didn't have it at all.
Yeah, which is why I'm not really trying.
Yep.
As the creator and lead designer from the 13 booster sets we've released since 2019, Part the Mist Veil is the one I'm the most proud of, quote James White.
What the Frank? Where did he say that on Twitter just now or something?
This is in the page, like the reveal page.
Wow.
He's very happy that it is
interesting.
With our best work yet that players will celebrate this milestone and welcome our new Japanese fans into the global Flesh and Blood community.
That's super cool. Oh, also the pre-release is going to be in Japan. You going to Japan?
The premiere.
The premiere.
I will not be going to Japan.
On that note, I'm so excited that there's going to be
Amsterdam.
Oh, yeah, fair enough. Oh, are you? That's cool.
Yeah, for that Pro Tour.
Oh yeah, there is a Pro Tour, isn't there? The world premiere is great because There's a short stint in time where I didn't think we'd have any more premieres because we had Tales of Aria, and then I think Uprising didn't have one, and I was
Uprising
did they?
Yeah.
Oh.
It was in Vegas.
There was a set where they didn't have a premiere, and I was like a little panicking we weren't going to have any anymore.
They didn't for Dynasty, and they didn't for Outsiders.
They didn't for Outsiders.
They didn't for Outsiders, and they didn't for Bright Lights.
I was like, what the frick? World premiere should happen every draftable set at least. And if we're just having draftable sets in the foreseeable future, it should be every set.
I'm down.
So I was kind of nervous we weren't going to get some ever again, and that was going to be something I was going to like tell my nephews. You know, I got to watch the whatever world premiere.
You got to be there for
from
the
my
first.
couch. Because I never went to any of the premieres. None of them were like in my backyard, so I couldn't go to them.
I know for Uprising they did 3 world premieres like simultaneously because they did like Sydney, Europe, and Las Vegas.
That's why we didn't have world premiere for Bright Lights and Outsiders. It took them.
They got stocked up for Uprising.
Uprising took them, but we didn't know it at the time. All right, that's crazy.
Yeah. Now,
right,
this is also going to be the set that's used for Nationals drafting and for Amsterdam drafting, I'm pretty sure.
That's cool.
So there's 2 months, I think, between release of Mistvale and Amsterdam, or like 7 weeks or something.
Okay.
There's only like 2 weeks between release and US Nats.
Mm-hmm.
And it's drafted there.
Well, that'll
be fun.
What other big events is Heavy getting drafted in? Or
LA and then ProQuest Season 5.
LA.
Yep.
That's cool. All right. Well, is there any other topics you wanted to get into real quick?
Do we want to talk about the lying at the table stuff?
Do you want to talk about that now? Let's talk about that now.
Sure.
Okay, so recently I'd heard about, and I'm sure it's just going around in the TCG space, where they're talking about, does stream quality look good to you?
Looks a little... it's auto setting me to like 360. Hang on.
It'll be all right. That's better than it looks for me then. I don't know. For some reason my preview looks bad. But there was someone who was complaining about specifically, and I'm not going to go into their situation too much, but background for why we thought of this was there was like a person who is notable in the CEDH community. I don't know the person very well, but they were very upset because there was a game that happened. I don't remember if they were a part of it or not, where there was... So the way, CEDH, it's a multiplayer game, but it's very try hard, and I think it was in a tournament setting, so like there are prizes on the line or something like that, even if they're not huge. Like the idea is like there's prizes on the line, but this is a multiplayer game where people kind of work together, and the game ended where one player basically lied their way to victory, like saying that they didn't have the winning combo in hand, and so that they could work with other people to stop this other thing from happening. And then they did just have the winning combo in hand. And they just lied their way to victory, and that person was upset about it. And I guess it makes sense in a way. And I guess the hot take that I would take from this and present is I don't think that's very sporty. I think lying at a TCG table is not very sporting.
So
there's so much to go with that, right?
There is. Like there's a lot to go with that, and so I think part of this is the context matters.
So let's reframe the context back to something we're more comfortable with. We'll talk about specifically how would you define the context, like, for make it easier to talk about?
That was it was a game of Commander EDH, but it was a CEDH game, which means it's competitive.
Yeah,
it's a tournament setting, like you said, prizes on the line. This to me feels no different than if you were to just say, I don't have it or I have it or whatever. At the analogy that always came up was poker, but like if you were just doing, if this was just a 1v1 game and you just asked your opponent if they had it and they said no, like, are you, one, why are you inclined to believe them?
Especially a competitive game, stakes on the line. In
a competitive game where the objective is to win, plain and simple.
Yeah.
And it is a competitive game, and they took a line that didn't involve playing cards where they win.
Oh my gosh.
That's
know.
it. They took a winning line that you took a risk on, that they were not lying.
Yeah.
Because they are not under any obligation to tell you the truth about private information.
True. So
they're handed private information.
Let me rephrase it all the way on the opposite side of the spectrum. I'm at an armory. I'm playing with people that I know very well and see regularly, and a situation comes up where they're just like, do you have it or you don't? Do you have the pummel? Or do I just lose right here? And I'm like, no. And they're like, okay, well, I'll just play it that way. And then I do have the pummel. And it's like, there was no reason for me to lie right there and be like, no, I don't have the pummel.
The standard response that people give, that the people that I play with, that I know, in that situation, the standard response they give is,
That's a great response. I've heard you.
Maybe.
I've seen you guys do it before.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's a very good one.
I don't know. I don't know if I have it. Maybe not. It's like I like, this is something that's like literally come up in like games here after I moved, is like, it came down to like the way that someone was blocking was whether or not I had an Asvali in hand, because I had 1 point of Arcane and could they go to 1?
Yeah.
And they're like, man, if you just have Asvali, like, this is bad. I was like, that would be pretty bad. I didn't have Asvali, but it was just like, yeah, that's
would be bad in that scenario.
If you block this way, and Asvali does kill you. Actually, did I have Asvali? I did have Asvali in that scenario, actually.
Oh my gosh. All right.
Yeah, but like, I will fully make a distinction between like an armory where it's like, if somebody's going to just try to like fully convince you they don't have something just to slime their way into an armory win. Because like, there's a difference between like giving a non-answer and like trying to convince them that you don't have the pummel.
Yeah.
If you are actively trying to convince them that you don't have the pummel when you do to get an armory win, no, that is, I would define it as unsporting.
Yeah.
But I think you also are going to have different table manners at an armory compared to a battle heart or a calling.
So if it happens at a calling or something like that, where
I think both people are going to have different approaches, and the person who is in the situation of, if they have the pummel, I lose, they're going to be behaving differently. If somebody's trying to convince me they don't have the pummel at a calling, I'm probably going to play as if they have the pummel, which then if they're trying to next level me, we'll see. Maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe I can't play around it no matter what. Maybe I can play around it either way, and it doesn't matter if they have it or not.
So an example of something like this at like a more competitive level in a 1v1 event, like a Flesh and Blood event, not like EDH, is I've had this happen to me before. I've seen this before, where it's like, you're sitting at the table, and then there's how do I word this? You're at the table, you're playing out the game, it's coming to a close, it's getting pretty close, everything's kind of tense, and then one of the players who's, maybe they're blocking for that turn or something like that, and they're just like, I have this, this, and this in my hand.
Yeah.
It's a competitive level event. They've announced that what they have in their hand.
As the person who is blocking.
Sure. I mean, in either situation where you're just like, I have the sauce. you know, in your hand. Like, you just tell them what's in your hand. For the other person, are you inclined to believe them? I mean, what if they're lying?
If this is a competitive level event, not really.
Yeah.
I think if the choice is on me, I am considering whatever line they suggest plus any other possible line I can think of.
Like, great. And now you've reminded me you can do this, but also I'm thinking about other things.
Yes. I'm not going to fixate on that. Is it something I'm going to keep in mind that they can potentially do? Yeah. If they can actually do it and they haven't missed the math on their part. Like, that doesn't... I'm probably not taking into account the fact that they said it.
Okay, so how about in the case, and this is changing the topic a little bit, where it's like, what if the case of I say that just to get in your head? I played...
if it gets in my head, then it's on me.
If I play Crippling Crush, I have pitched 3 blues, and I have 2 floating, and a card in hand, and I'm like, I got the pummel. We're not at reaction step yet. You are still playing on blocking, and you're like, I'm like, I got the pummel. Like, at what point is it like goading? Is it like you're trying to get in their head? Is it a problem? Is it sharking at that point? Is it on the individual of the blocker at that point not to like get wrapped up in it?
It depends on how obnoxious the person is being. If they're doing this on every turn, then sure. If this is just on a single turn, which also that example I don't think is good, I'm gonna block 3 cards, I'm gonna pummel it, and force that over. Okay, I'll give up my last card, I guess.
True. Give me a scenario where it is like maybe a problem.
CNC pummel.
CNC pummel. That's a good one.
Yeah, CNC pummel. You have tunic and 1 floating, and you have a card in arsenal, or just a card in hand.
Yeah.
Like, that is a situation where it's like, all right, do I play around it? Do I not? And I think regardless of whether or not you say something, there is a correct choice for me that doesn't depend on what you say.
Fair.
If you're saying something on every turn just to be obnoxious and you're just like threatening, like you're just actively trying to be obnoxious and say you're threatening pummel every turn.
Yeah.
If you're going out of your way to threaten pummel every turn, especially when you don't have it on half the turns or most of the turns because you only have 3 reds and probably no blues at this point.
Yeah.
I think you're going to be throwing away so much value that I'm going to start looking to capitalize on it.
I guess that makes sense. No, that makes sense.
But
you say that, but like if you sit down at a table, it might be different, right? If this is top 8 of an event, it could just mess with your emotions regardless.
I think the event would mess with my emotions way more than anything my opponent could say.
Fair enough.
Like, that's just it. If my opponent's just, I'm not, it is not difficult for me to tune out my opponent.
Well, I guess that's the point I was trying, I guess I'll get to is it's not necessary. It's probably unsporting, but it's not cheating, obviously, to do that. And in your response, it's not even wrong because it's actually a bigger flaw on the person doing it.
They're wasting time doing it.
Yeah. They're getting hung up on these outside of the game things to mess with you.
Like, I specifically, and it's interesting because people are like, oh, but their turn is done. They've decided what they're going to do. All this stuff. It's like, no, there is information that you can glean from the way your opponent blocks. If you think you are done making choices because you have sent your last attack of the turn, you are wrong. And if you are going to spend your time talking and trying to get your opponent wound up,
you're probably just going to miss something.
I think you're going to miss stuff, and I think you're going to make mistakes. And
at that point, are you watching what your opponent's pitching? Are you trying to remember, the pitch stack for yourself or maybe the other person?
Are you watching what your opponent's pitching? Are you watching what your opponent's blocking with? If they block with a card, what does that tell you about the cards they have left?
Yeah.
Like,
they're blocking with a blue and they're playing Phi. I don't know. Like, maybe that's a bad example, but like the idea is just like there's better things to be wasting your time on. And
so I do also want to loop back a touch, which is EDH being a multiplayer format. The politics there are inherent.
Yeah.
They have to be.
Yes.
Because you are one person at a table of 4. And if you don't play politics, you lose.
Well, EDH is a little different. You do have to play politics. But from the 2 games of EDH I've played, have you played any EDH specifically? Like competitive?
I've not. But okay.
The way that
just from the way UPF works.
Yeah, it is. But the way the EDH games that I played was it was like imagine you're like, as soon as you sit down the table before you draw cards, it's a nuclear arm race and everyone's got their finger on the button. And it's less of it's politics for a minute until someone's like, hey, I think I can win the game. And then what they do is they spread out their hand and the whole table discusses whether or not they win right there. Because it's like, okay, this guy probably wins. But it's probably convoluted. So how does he do it? And so at that point, it was almost like playing like a D&D game or something like that, where we're all just kind of working together to see if he can actually kill us through us. And in that sense, it was much more casual. Like competitive EDH felt very casual because we were all just kind of working together to like understand how the combo works. But I don't know
if the interaction with the other players seems like an inherent component of that format.
Yeah.
Because if you become the target, you lose.
True.
So if you're saying you don't have the combo, you're not the target.
True.
Seems like somebody would want to say they don't have the combo if they want to win.
So maybe they're a dirty little liar, and you got to think about that a little harder.
Maybe they want to win.
True.
Weird.
Especially in a particular CEDH game where they might have prizes on the line.
Let's put it this way.
Mm-hmm.
If someone asks you if you have the combo, can you actually say yes?
You can always say yes, but then they have to decide whether or not to believe.
You have to be saying yes to everything to the point that they know that you saying yes doesn't mean anything.
Yes.
Like it gets into like the actual like politics of the way you play that format.
Yeah.
Because of the dynamics. It's like that's an inherent piece of it where like, yeah, people are gonna lie.
I guess that makes sense.
In a CEDH game, that's not something you should be surprised by. You don't have to like it. You don't have to like getting got by it.
Yeah.
But if you are surprised, you're at the wrong table.
I feel like a little bit. Yeah, I think that's another part of it is it's and I think we've talked about this before. It's probably just 2 different groups. Like there's probably a group that wants to play it more like poker, and there probably is a group that wants to play it more like EDH, Commander, but like your decks are just juiced to frick. And so I don't know.
They want to play high power Commander, and like it's. Yeah, and those are the 2 groups you see butting heads on Twitter right now.
Yep.
Are the people who are okay with the interactive game, the person-to-person game,
I don't know why it took me
and the group that wants it to be the cards.
I don't know why it took me this long, but it also reminds me of just people talking about UPF. At UPF events, they have gold foils that at one point were valued at like $20,000. Yeah. Maybe not valued that anymore.
You think the Icelander players were lying about what they had in their arsenal?
Well, the particular Icelander I played against in my finals was actually a real sweetheart, and they worked with me super well.
I bet the Icelander players who were lying bombed out relatively quickly.
Yes. Yeah.
But they're gonna.
Like you could always tell when you sat down at the table who's trying to win, who's trying to have fun, who's trying to win. You could just see the air around them.
Who is willing to win at the expense of fun?
Yes, you can feel that when you sit down at the table.
Yes.
And Even in my like top pod when I won a gold foil, it was like 2 people sat down and they were willing to win, and then one of them ended up like flipping, and just had an agenda, which was also really cool to watch. But
is that against the rules? Is targeting somebody against the rules because of
no, it's
whatever
not.
Interpersonal interactions have happened?
It's not, and in that case, in this particular case, it was actually pretty cool for me. But it was like, all so crazy. I view
1v1 formats, especially Flesh and Blood, way too numerically or objectively to care what my opponent's doing. The further you get from Flesh and Blood 1v1, the more the interpersonal interaction like can matter. Like
you move literally from Flesh and Blood 1v1 to Magic 1v1, and then it might matter a little more.
Mattering.
Yeah. Just because they play like I believe in most formats they play like a best of 3 in tournaments.
Yes.
Right, and that already matters a lot. I mean, you might still play objectively in the sense of you saw them play this way the first game, so you play this way the second game, but also that has to do with them as a person. It's less numerically and more objectively.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know. That's a good point. The armpit, he's got a lot of thoughts on this right now. I'd imagine, bringing up UPF. I don't know. It's a really interesting topic, and I do think this is why in Commander they definitely talk about having a rule 0, where the idea is you sit down and you say, this is my deck. This is exactly what it wants to do. This is the amount of infinite combos that are in it. This is the kind of game I want to have. If you destroy my lands, I'm going to pee on your car. Like
this is roughly what turn I can kill 1 person at or 3 people at.
Yes, those are also important, and also pet peeves and other things, and really setting an environment is important.
Here are the cards that I have in my deck that people may not like, but like all of this is like casual Commander stuff.
Yeah, this is casual stuff. This is
where if you were to just straight up lie and say you don't have the combo and actively try to convince somebody you don't have the combo rather than go,
so what would you do in the situation you're in a competitive EDH format for money or prizes? We'll say money because it's, prizes have value.
Am I the one being asked if I have the combo, or am I the one trying to figure out if somebody has combo?
You in both situations.
If I'm trying to figure out if somebody has combo, and I know that I don't have a way to stop their combo and deal with the other person, has to be the asterisk on this situation.
Yeah.
Because if I can just deal with both, I'm like, I don't care if you have combo.
Yeah.
I stop it, I kill them. It still works.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm not trying to ask them.
Fair enough.
I don't want to. If this is like a fully competitive scenario, I'm going to avoid asking them at all, if at all possible, and I'm going to try and get whatever information I can from the gameplay
from playing the game
they've done, because that's the piece that can't lie.
True. Yeah.
You played this card at this time.
Yeah, you did.
You have this many resources up. You let this happen. You let this happen. You didn't let this happen.
Okay, and now if I ask you, as I'm trying to figure out what's going on, and I'm like, Kevin, do you have the combo? Do you have the combo? Like, do I need to be concerned about that? You do the thing again. All right, we'll wrap that up right there.
I put it in my 100. I put it in my 100. It might be in my hand. It might not.
All right. Do you want to?
If you don't have a way to stop it, that is a risk you take.
Do you want to bring in our first guest for the evening? Our
Sure.
first caller?
Yeah.
Might be our caller for the evening. And while you're doing that, I'm just going to shout out. It says 7 days ago we had Sleep Strong and Ash Firecrest. Follow us on freaking whatever this is, Twitch. Follow us on Twitch. We really appreciate that. I believe I probably shouted them out last time, but it said it was only 7 days ago. So I just want to say, if you want to be on the show talking to us, all you got to do is show up and ask a hot, spicy question. If you ask it in Twitch chat, we can bring you on to the Discord. But I don't know. It's twitch.tv/ the table pit if you are watching this stream later. And then the Discord information will be on that Twitch. Or you can just ask us in chat. But we have a caller with us. Caller, what's your name and where are you calling from?
Hello. I'm Jesse Harper. Yay. I'm calling from, Nashua, New Hampshire. And my hot take is that Spectra is a good design.
It is a well-designed keyword and mechanic for the game?
Yes.
Okay.
I will even add that I think Spectra is an overall net positive for the game.
Ooh, okay.
Okay.
Would you care to elaborate on that for us?
What is it? How does the game specifically benefit from it?
Because people need to be cognizant of their decisions in deck building because it is a keyword that exists.
Okay.
That's good, right? So initially when I think of that answer, I think of like, if I'm building a deck, one thing I always have to keep in mind is what is my Guardian game plan, right? Because every deck needs to think about the fact that there is a deck that wants to stop you from dealing damage and will hit you with a hammer maybe later. So, that is like one of those, it's a, in the way that you describe it, it's similar in the fact that you have to think about these things when you're making a deck. Your game plan needs to account for your opponent's game plan.
Correct.
Kevin, what's your thoughts about Spectra? Or should I give mine first?
I want to hear yours first because I think you are way more passionate about it than I am.
I feel like you're probably going to give a more level-headed response, so I'm just actually going to swing
probably
the full opposite direction. Spectra is a pain. It is. I'm not going to say an unfun mechanic, but no one has fun when it's being played. It's, the way Spectra reads, I should just go ahead and pull that up so I can read it. But like Spectra, let me just pull that up real quick so I can.
Spectra, this aura can be attacked. When this aura becomes the target of an attack, destroy it and close the combat chain. The attack does not resolve.
Those last two little quips right there where it's like the combat chain closes and the attack doesn't resolve is a nightmare. Some decks live off of their on-hit effects. Like I think like Dorinthia swinging her knife at a shadow is not doing a whole lot when it comes to putting counters on that Dawnblade. Unlike with dragons.
Sure.
Because you can punch a dragon.
Still on theme.
So the problem is just for a large portion of decks, your game plan doesn't just change a little bit, it changes wildly. Right? Like it's not like I'm accounting for the fact that my opponent wants to play where they're fatigue milling me versus playing a mid-range game, right? Like Bravo mid-range versus like Bravo block you out, all D reacts. Bravo oops all D reacts is different than Bravo oops all on hit effects.
All pummels.
So
oops all pummels.
So in that sense, it's kind of like that's a change, but it's not a huge change. Whereas with Prism, it's just like, okay, now I can't do this entire core mechanic of my gameplay, right? I don't know if I'm arguing this well enough. Like, what am I missing here? Like it shuts down certain heroes. Go ahead.
I have a couple. Like, I get the gist of what you're trying to say. Like, it does feel unfun when you're in certain heroes that really get blown out. When you're like, well, they've resolved the Genesis. I need to kill that, right? So what do I do? I can't continue my turn. But that's overall part of the flavor of Illusionist. So
the flavor is to be unfun?
Oh no. What I'm saying is the flavor of Illusionist is you have to make those decisions, right? So we've presented you as the Illusionist with a thing that you can't determine is real or not real. Okay.
What heroes do you play again?
I play Riptide, dude.
Okay,
You want to talk about a bad Prism matchup?
No.
We can talk about that.
That's not what I mean. You said we there when you were talking about illusionists, and I was like, hold on a minute. Is Riptide pulling one over on us or something?
We'll say.
Sure.
But so there's commonly two ways in the like fantasy of illusionist, right? That is, you see through it. Either you're too strong to be fooled by it and you don't care, which is Phantasm, right?
True.
Because my things are power 6.
True.
Or you're too smart to be fooled by the illusion, right? You're too mentally tough to fall for it. So when you're developing your game plan into illusionist and they play something with Spectra, did you have the forethought before you went into this fight to say, hey, my plan into illusionist is just say, I don't care what you're showing me, I'm just going to punch you in the mouth?
That is,
or is your plan to get rid of all their illusions so that they have nothing left?
That is a good point. That is very flavorful. Now, what I will say is that's not that the flavor's cool. That's not fun. What's fun is you have a game plan and then you execute on that game plan, right? So like some people might say, Bravo dominate crippling crush into dominate crippling crush into dominate crippling crush is not fun to play against because I don't get to play the game. It's fun when I'm also allowed to play the game. You know, Azalea's crying because you did the dominate crippling crush on repeat until you could pummel CNC because you just drew perfect hands. It's unfun to play against something that won't let you play. Spectra doesn't let you play because it just says, I'm going to perpetually outvalue you with these auras on the board that just increase in value over turn, like we brought up Genesis. Or frick, the other side of the coin that I was talking too much about the other side to think about.
Drumai, Phantasm, Dragons.
It's like either I hit that's it. Either I hit the Spectra and then my turn ends, or I don't do that and then you just fully outvalue me over the course of the game because of this perpetual building value on board. And it's like I'll lose the value game and just lose the game. That's understandable. Or I hit the Spectra and then I lose my turn. And that's the unfun part because you don't get to do your game plan.
So no, you do. You made the choice to not do your game plan. You decided to attack the illusion. So?
True.
You fell for it. You got. You got duped.
So is the problem with Spectra or with Guardian not having enough action points to kill Spectra and present damage?
That do suck. Actually, I'd rather ask the question of, because we never got around to it, Kevin, is Spectra good for the game? I'm trying not to think about this from a Guardian perspective, just as he's trying not to think about it from a Riptide perspective.
Yeah. So Spectra, the problem for Guardian is not inherently Spectra.
Yeah.
It's they don't have extra action points
Yeah.
because there isn't a good way to balance Spectra where you can kill multiple. There isn't a way to balance Spectra where you can kill multiple of them and Guardian can even kill multiple of them and it be worth it. I will also say the blue auras that came out in Everfest, like this one,
those are good.
Being 0 cost was way more, made Spectra way more of an issue than the 4 cost yellow auras.
Because they cost 4.
Yes.
Because
the ease with which you can play these has a much greater impact. Because this is just a 1-card hand. Are you going to give me your turn?
Yeah. And they have really good value. Like Hazebending.
Yes.
Really good value. Huge value over the course of a game if they're untouched. And even if they are touched.
It's still going to eat a weapon swing plus 1 point of life. Yeah, that's pretty good for a 1-card hand. But,
oh my gosh.
Like, the problem for Guardian is not Spectra. It's the lack of action points.
Yeah.
That's why Starvos ran time Vipers into Prism.
Yeah.
is so they could just clear a double aura turn when they needed to.
Well, I mean, who can clear a double aura turn?
Anybody, technically.
Well, yes, anybody. Nobody on their most decks on their standard game plan will not be able to.
Like if you're playing and not accounting for it.
Yes. If we go back to Prism, or if Prism comes up here and Spectra's a big deal for all of it, then we're going to see lead the charges come back out and stuff like that, where it's gain action points, not gain go again. I think Spectra eating go again makes for interesting choices for aggro decks. Because if Spectra didn't eat go again, Prism just loses to aggro decks.
Yeah.
Or old Prism just loses to aggro decks, excuse me.
Yeah. But the fact that it eats the go again.
The fact that it eats the go again makes for choices for aggro decks. Is this going to be a big turn and I'm still just going face? Like, at what point do I stop killing auras? At which auras do I kill?
Yeah. Also,
do I run a time snap just so that they can't ALS me and eat my turn?
It's also like Phi, where it's like some of his biggest attacks are the chain enders, and it's like I don't want to use my chain ender and it be my biggest attack on an aura. Or do I? Like, it's like these questions.
You don't want to lava burst an aura.
Yeah, you don't want to lava burst an aura.
No, the way Phi would play that is he would do his like 4 chain links, and then he'd Phoenix Flame an aura, and he'd Arsenal a lava burst.
And then next turn
he'd have a turn where he just went 4 chain links, ignore an aura, send lava burst face.
Yeah.
That's what he has to do. But like Spectra makes for interesting choices for aggro decks, and then Guardian is just like, it wouldn't matter if Spectra didn't eat go again.
But it's still really hard to play around as the Guardians.
But as a Guardian, you still have a tough Dromai match too. So like, what's the effective difference between Spectra and Dragons in this case?
It's Spectra is just the representation of like that is just the method of killing the permanent, which is the same as swinging a hammer at Mirror Guy.
So I got an interesting direction I kind of want to take this, which is, so the idea is you can beat them by being, you can beat Phantasm by just being strong enough to see through it. You can beat, or you say that a person beats Spectra by being smart enough to plan for it, to like anticipate the illusion. How many things do I need to anticipate for in Flesh and Blood? Kano exists. That's something you got to plan for. Prism exists. Dromai's different than Prism in some cases. Like, you might need to plan differently for that. Whatever the best deck in the format is, that's probably your top priority, or the best aggro deck in the format. Dash Max, you know, those item decks. Like, specifically if you're thinking about Guardian, you got to find it. You got to think about something to do with Dash. If you're thinking about other classes have weaknesses into each other, right? And so like, how is it just supposed to be a meta call? Is that just how the game's supposed to be played? Is you can only cover, you know, so much of the pie, and then you just do a meta call on the rest of it? Like, I'm just not going to run into Prism this tournament. I'm just not going to run into Kano this tournament.
Currently, it kind of seems that way, but that's, I think, less of an issue of what we were talking about before with like design of specific card mechanics.
True.
And more of an issue with how LSS has been directing the game, right? So we've seen a trend for a couple sets now up until, you know, heavy hitters, which, you know, all the decks have had a very good showing across this RTN season so far, except for Betsy. But, you know, what can you do? Somebody's got to be the loser.
Betsy's just Bravo. Betsy's next Bravo. I think, yeah, I think you. No. I think that's their intention. No, but I think that's the intention, right?
Probably a good fill-in later. But back to what I was saying
I like to pretend that she doesn't exist now, and then when Bravo's gone, that is where she fits in.
Sure.
So if you ignore the fact now that she doesn't exist, go ahead.
Yeah. So now we've seen this like really wide open meta, right? Where every hero's kind of viable. Specialists are getting rewarded for sinking time into their heroes. and all these things. And now it seems like everybody can go out on any given Sunday and win a big event. So I think that's more the issue, that the meta hasn't consolidated, right? So you're going to be a dog to random fringe deck X, right? So yeah, to somebody's going to have a good matchup into you, and there's almost nothing you can do about it. So what you have to do is say, I expect the meta share to be, 45% this deck, or 45% this type of deck.
Yep.
So I want to look at my sideboard choices as modal, in a sense that I can bring these cards in to as many matchups as possible and still have them be functional cards.
Yep.
So
yeah,
if you just like can't find the slots to bring something in for Prism, then sucks, right? Like, how much Prism are you going to see? And if you make the wrong meta call, it happens. It's a competitive environment. People try to spike tournaments all the time. I play Riptide. How many games into Riptide has the Fab player base really played? So it's like,
true, very true. Unless you're on Talishar, I actually see a sizable number on Talishar.
That's where we lurk. That's the secret.
This is hunting ground. I guess the idea is, let's say I'm trying to win an event. There's going to be these fringe decks. I'm going to call them fringe decks. KO and Prism. Can I call those fringe decks? Where it's like what they do is they like prey on certain things. It's not KO, right? What do you call them?
KO or Kano?
So KO is the best aggro deck in the format right now, right?
Yeah,
I don't like calling him an aggro deck.
He's the best raw value deck.
He's the deck.
He's a very good raw value deck.
He's maybe the best value deck right now.
Just
moving on.
He has the best numbers.
Yes.
So Kano and Prism are things that you would have to go out of your way to tech for, but are probably not going to be a large portion of the pie when it comes to at an event, the amount of people there. Is that right?
Most likely.
I would agree with that.
So maybe your best bet going into a tournament is you target the meta by playing one of these. I'm going to keep calling it a fringe deck. One of these decks that aren't one of the maybe top 5 most played decks at the event. And so then at that point, people are just playing is that how that works? Where it's like, I can't plan for all of these external decks, so I'm just going to play on a completely different axis. And that's how you try to go to an event to win an event.
Yeah, that's a perfectly sound. Yeah, perfectly sound strategy. Like we see it all the time. Majin Bay made second in Battle Hardened Hartford. Right. So then there was the Prism deck that won an RTN.
The right way to probably
won a Battle Hardened.
Yeah. So the right way to approach in a tournament would probably be to do one of those things. What if most people started doing that?
Well, then they're no longer fringe decks and they self-correct.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And then they self-correct.
That's the beauty. That's the beauty of a game like Fab, in a sense, where it's like everything should be self-correcting. If Prism becomes the best deck, then everybody shifts to a deck that starts beating Prism.
People watching this are just watching my brain unfold in real time as I'm learning. It's it's really cool, and it's like elegant in a way, and also frustrating. Like if you're like, I want to win this event, how do you target it?
This can also just be like this can entirely be like this whole thing. The way like these meta shifts can entirely be encapsulated in the Kano problem, which is Kano isn't popular.
Yeah.
So nobody brings Kano hate.
Yeah.
So Kano does really well.
Yeah.
So people bring Kano hate. Kano becomes less popular because he doesn't do as well. And then it loops.
And sometimes those loops happen like 2 or 3 times before the event, where it's like, I'm going to bring Kano, and then like right before the event, you're like, no, maybe I shouldn't bring Kano. And then other people just have the hate, and then they don't need it because there isn't the Kano, or like it's interesting actually, because it's not like each event is a half turn of the circle. It's more like each event could be like a circle and a half.
It's somewhere on the circle.
It's somewhere on the circle. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting, and you just kind of have to do a meta. So is there a way to like spike an event? Like, how do you just win the event? How do you just like plan for an event at that point?
Again, it's just like, can I put enough cards into my sideboard to make this matchup like equitable? Can I bring this to 50-50 or better? And if so, what matchups am I getting worse in because I put these cards in my deck? And if you're just like not worth giving up 4 matchups for that one matchup, which in my opinion is not worth it, you just say, you know what, these cards don't come in, I'm going to put different tech cards in for other matchups to make those matchups better, and just have these really polarizing matches and just try to make like a really deep run if you run into one of those decks early, and just hope you don't find another one for the rest of the tournament.
So I'm gonna
like Prism was really like that, actually. Yep. So like Prism had awful matches into like Vi and Briar and things like that. So Prism players would be like, well, my matchups into those are kind of bad, but I can make every other matchup in the game really, really good. So I'm just going to sack the matches that I know I already have a hard time dealing with and just hope I don't see them and just run over everybody else.
I know the answer to this next one, but just for devil's advocate, I'm going to throw it out there because someone's got to be thinking it. If I'm, able to come up with it right now, it's like, does that make all of the events RNG? Who gets the correct matchups all the way up to top 8? Who gets the correct matchups in top 8? I know the answer I would give on this, but
I mean, any event to some degree is going to be some amount of RNG, because it's also not just what matchups you get, it's what matchups they had to put them in your bracket. And I think one of the things that I like about Flesh and Blood is the pilot skill often matters more than whatever the theoretical matchup spread is.
Yeah. Because the way I was going to bring it up is like, if it's a 60-40 matchup, you're like, frick, I'm going to 60-40. That's in my favor. Like, that's solidly in my favor. And it's like 40% of the time you lose that. 40% of the time you just lose that. And so it's like, and then also like player skill, right? Like maybe they just have a slightly different
but
game
then
plan
is
than
it actually 60-40 with the person you sit down across from?
No. Never.
Like this is something where it's like, if we're somehow circling like all the way back, it's like you might know how to play that Prism Guardian matchup better than the Prism player.
True.
And it might suck still, but if you suddenly take it from a 1090 to a 2080 and you're 1 in 5 to win that, and you get that, and you get that win, like that can change your whole tournament trajectory.
As a Bravo, I have a really good record into Prisms on Talishar, because I've played a lot of old Prism as Bravo, which that was actually felt unplayable. But then also,
but now they don't have old Luminaris.
Yeah, now they don't have
8 less health.
Yeah, it's a lot more reasonable.
Even though they have Spectra, it's not as bad.
Yeah.
So that comes back to, was Spectra actually the problem, or was it Luminaris? See what I'm saying?
True.
So like, I think Spectra overall is a net positive because you create decision points in deck building during the game, like at all points throughout. Yeah. It's just a good job. Like,
and I'll bring it back all the way to, if you think Spectra is going to be a big part of the meta, should you be playing Guardian?
So I have a question. So the answer is that's all I can afford. But my question is, in the logic of you should be prepared for whatever they throw at you or whatever. You know you can read the cards ahead of time. You know what could be thrown at you. Does that mean there's no unfun mechanics? You can plan for all of them. There's no unfun mechanics. I think it's just playing around
absolutely possible to have unfun mechanics that does not. Spectra's interaction with Luminaris does not mean that Spectra itself was an unfun mechanic.
Do you think they'll bring back Spectra in like a meaningful way in the future? Like a hero revolved around Spectra, they bring back more cards that say Spectra.
Not with the way they've been talking about how they want action points to work.
Okay, I'm actually going to... Yeah. I'm going to bring up what...
Yeah. I think they're talking about like action points are going to be harder to get. Go against going to be harder to get.
True.
There's no Dromai, no Prism, no Icelander where you get a free action point on your opponent's turn. They want to dial back on action points.
Fair.
Bringing Spectra back would be unhealthy in that scenario where there aren't decks that have easy access to extra action points to deal damage and clear Spectra.
Yeah.
Like there had to be the Briar decks.
The Fi
when
decks.
Prism existed.
Yeah.
There had to be Fi. There had to be Briar when Prism existed. When Luminaris existed.
Fair enough. So are we going to see much more of it now that we're moving into a meta that might have less of it?
No, not at all. I think it is done, but I think it's because it was for a version of Flesh and Blood that they want to move away from.
Fair enough. So you don't see Spectra in Fab 2.0.
Not as a major portion, where like because it is coming up in New Prism, where they're using it as part of like the Tome of Divinity package, and they get like a bunch of they're getting the auras just for the effects. The auras are not inherently weapons as well. Yeah. Which was also the problem is like this was just one value every turn.
Yes. That's a whole different problem.
Yeah.
And like, then
Spectra's still going to be played.
Yeah.
I think they're not going to introduce new cards with it, and I think they're going to make it a pain to play Spectra auras, which it is.
Yeah.
These are cards that you can't get other value from, but these are going to be played. They're not going to make more, I don't think.
Okay.
And I think we've already seen an example of this in Phantom Tidemaw, which is the aura they put out in, I believe, Bright Lights.
What?
Yes.
What are we talking about?
I think they are moving away from certain mechanics. I just think that Spectra...
This is the first time I've seen this in months. I forgot this card existed. I was like, what the frick is a Phantom Tidemaw? Riptide's coming out as an illusionist. That's where this all came from. Oh my gosh, I knew it.
No, you don't give away the secret sauce, man. Come on, dude.
We'll cut that out. Sorry. We'll cut that out in post. It's an aura with Phantasm? Think all right, okay.
That Spectra is an overall net positive for the flavor it adds, the decision points it made, and like by itself, like if there's just a deck that plays like an Ode to Wrath but doesn't do anything else with it other than
get the effect aura value.
Yeah. Correct. Other than get the aura value, are you spending your whole turn to clear the aura if you know you can just pop every Herald they play? So it's like that's when you have the decision point as the player to go, how much does this aura value matter versus what's actually happening over the course of the game. I think people gave it a lot of hate because they also had to fight it with Luminaris, which I will say that interaction together felt like you were climbing a very big hill once you got behind, and it felt like there's nothing I can do, I just die. Similar to how like when Chromide Dust and Burn Them All and Passing Mirage are all in the field together, you're just like, man, how do I get through this scenario? Like, how do I win this game?
Yeah.
And I think it has less to do with Spectra as a mechanic and more that there were just other things making people hate it, and people gravitated towards Spectra because that was the thing that was actively stopping their turn, and it was the easiest thing to cherry pick and say, this is the problem.
Yeah. And I think we're not going to see, we're going to see people, we're going to have people come back and say they don't like Spectra with New Prism. I don't think it's going to be the same level of animosity. I think the actual animosity is going to be directed towards a couple of the angels that like enable that plan.
Actually,
or when you helmet your Ravages Figment at instant speed because someone's trying to kill your angel and you shoot yourself with the 1 to kill the angel they're targeting and close the combat chain for them. Oh, look, it's Spectra that I can control.
Yeah. Spectra on demand.
I also kind of like, I've been looking at this more where it's an aura, but it has ward and it has phantasm.
And it has phantasm. Yeah. Phantom Tidemaw's really neat.
Maybe that's like a direction they go.
Here's the best part about that card.
Spectra to say Phantasm and Ward 1 naturally within its text. Go ahead.
No. The best part about Phantom Tidemaw is it's an instant.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, that's fascinating.
Yeah. It gets real spicy.
That's interesting. I don't think I've ever seen a plate against me, so...
Yeah, here's the other really neat part about it. That's printed for LL, not for CC.
That's... I know so little. I know so little about LL. I know so little. I'm not even gonna lie. I'm literally pouring myself a drink over this. I think the last thing I was gonna bring up was I'm going to bring up some of, I'm going to try to say his name, Cartanaga's take, where he said a couple of things that I thought was interesting, like, Spectra is stupid for new players. And what the frick are the rules around Spectra? It is unintuitive. It has a lot of rules. Reading the card explains the card, but it doesn't fully give you the, like, the picture sometimes. Like all the little bits that happen as a result of it. And so it can be frustrating in that sense, but there's there's several mechanics, I would argue, that are kind of like that, where you're just like, what the frick is going on? Yeah. Hey, Gordon.
I mean, even Phantasm. Like, even Phantasm is weird to explain to new players. Like, it destroys the attack. Like, it destroys the dragon. That's not intuitive. Like,
no, yeah. Oh, and that was the other thing I was gonna bring up. Phantasm and Spectra are just the same thing. It's just the different side of the coin. It's just the same thing.
Sort of.
Yeah. It's just pop your attack or pop my attack. Same thing.
Yeah.
Is this person trying to come on and talk about their point? I feel like they have more than just those things to say about it.
What do you want to do, Kevin?
I don't know. I mean, I think...
I feel like we've kind of beat this one to death a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. I do want to say Burn Them All is an interesting one in that it is an aura that...
Burn Them All should just say, I don't know, item or something at this point, because like it should have been different.
Would Burn Them All, would you like Burn Them All more if it had Spectra?
Yes, instantly, 100% yes. Let me kill that friggin' thing, because there are certain endgame scenarios, especially when you're like on heroes whose A explodes.
Sure.
Where you need to be able to kill that, or it's just a eventual you're just going to die to arcane damage.
Such a weird card.
Yeah.
I have a question.
It's possible it'd be healthier for the game if it had Spectra.
Yes, 100%.
Does Charles Dunn list, like the hyper defensive Bravo, does he bring Horn in against Dromai? Imperial War
Probably
Horn
not.
against... No?
Why?
I don't know. I'm still learning that deck. I'm still figuring it out.
If he were, and I'm guessing you're thinking about, does it let him... Do they have to burn them all?
Well, I was thinking about like maybe like dust or something. Like, is there a good enough reason to like bring it?
So unless you get to choose for the Dromai, they just sack an Ashwing.
Well, yeah, I guess so. I mean, I think the idea
if Dromai gets to choose, they will get rid of an Ashwing instead of a dust.
Yeah.
Or, well, one, I think they can't even choose a dust because it is an ash.
They can't.
Not an item.
It is an ash.
Oh, wow.
It is not an aura, item, landmark, or ally.
The Chromai one?
Yeah, it's an ash.
It's not an aura,
item.
It's an ash.
Oh my gosh.
So they're not going to choose Burn Them All because they can just choose an Ashwing. and it will still satisfy Warhorn. So I don't imagine it is brought in.
Oh my goodness. I think the Warhorn should destroy Ashes now. All right.
Then they'll just choose a regular Ash to destroy.
Frick. All of this
and
sucks.
leave the Chromite one.
What about heroes? It should say heroes. All right.
They'll just choose an Ashwing because that's an acceptable alternative.
Frick.
Crazy.
All right.
Burn them all, need Spectra. We did it.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I think that's it. I think we've covered it. Is there anything else you want to talk about on this subject?
Not on this subject, but I do have an interesting art lore tie-in since we are talking about
Art lore
and the new set. All right, so go. Remember the blurb they put out about hidden tigers and snakes in the murky waters and all that?
Yep.
All right, go look at Spectral Prowler.
Spectral Prowler.
Mm.
And then go look at Phantasmal Haze and tell me what animals are on those.
Yeah.
Spectral Prowler has a Prowler, and Haze has a...
What does that look like to you? To me, it looks like a snake.
I think it looks like a dog. Like a really long dog with legs.
On Spectral Prowler?
A Phantasmal Haze. It's just a really long dog without legs. I'm memeing Kevin.
Sure.
It's a snake.
Is that because it's a snake?
No, and the only other snake card besides that we have in Flesh and Blood is the merchant
snake?
card. Pocket Snake. The merchant card, obviously. Well, I want to say thank you for the call. Is there anything you want to shout out?
No, not really. Other than
Like our Patreon?
Yeah, your Patreon's good. Give them money, push the buttons, do the things.
Yeah.
Buy them coffee.
No, I don't drink coffee.
Oh,
Same.
what do UPF players drink? Shit.
Red Bull.
Cocaine.
Yeah, buy a Red Bull.
Thank you so much.
Oh no, you drink, what is it, Dr. Pepper, strawberries and cream or whatever?
No, that's Ridge.
That is?
Well, Rachel bought some, but Ridge drinks that.
Okay.
I've been enjoying Coca-Cola all the time. But don't tell my sponsor if I get a sponsor that is drink related. Thank you so much for the call. We'll catch you next time.
See you, bud. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for being on. We appreciate it. That was good conversation.
Yeah, y'all take care. See you.
See ya. Kevin, is there anything else you wanted to talk about? No? Is that mostly covered?
I don't think so.
No? You've mostly covered?
I think so.
I think that's all I wanted to talk about. This was actually a pretty long episode. Where at the beginning I wasn't sure how much we were going to get said. But it had some good conversations, and I think part of the good conversations was just I didn't fully understand something going in, or the caller didn't, and then learning from everybody else in the call just added a lot to it as well.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate that. Any shout outs you got, Kevin? Anything you doing? Nope.
Nah, playing RTNs this week.
Let's go.
Philly in 2 weeks.
Just win them.
And yeah.
Hashtag just win out. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you next week. Bye.